live. Welcome back to the Magicminds podcast. I'm Matt Burke. How are we all doing? We bring you a fantastic interview today. Today's interview is with clinical psychologist Dr. Malie Coyne. I asked Malie to come on the show. As I say, she's a clinical psychologist. She's a lecturer in Galway. She's the author of a book, Love In, Love Out. And she's done lots and lots of work in broadcasting, radio, TV, co-wrote books. She has an extensive background in psychology, so it was an absolute honour to get her on the show. I originally asked her to come on because I knew she had wrote the book Love In, Love Out. I thought it was out actually at the time, but it's not out till later on this year. I bought a couple of copies and I hope to read it and interview her. But you know what, with this whole COVID-19 situation going on, I got her on. The stuff we cover today is roughly the stuff really in our book. You know, it's a compassionate approach for parents to look after kids with anxiety, but also look after themselves with anxiety, and that's the kind of stuff we touched on today. You know, her background, I shared some of my stuff. How do we look after parents with children going through anxiety, and plus their own anxiety, some of her own learnings in life, and she really revealed a lot in the interview, and that's key for me when it comes down to interviewing psychologists, consultants, professionals, that they show their authentic self, and that really shone through for me. It only took a couple of minutes in the interview for me to connect with her. Once people start opening up and being genuine, and you can smell that off people, and that's what I absolutely love about consultants, psychiatrists, psychologists, when they can show themselves and bring themselves, and she done that. And one of our friends said to her about the book that it's her true self coming out, parent, person and professional, and it was brilliant. I loved it, and I hope you love it too. So look, let us know what you think of this interview. Hopefully it's of benefit to you. I got loads of learning from it, loads of light bulb moments for me were going off during the interview. It was fantastic. We could have went on it probably for 2 hours with it, but I was very mindful of our time. So mind your little self. As always, thanks to Noel Riley from Rooney Media Graphics, Andy from libertyphotos.ie, they're our sponsors, they're our main men. The girls from Shannon's Hope Line, Mental Health Warriors, to all the mental health advocates out there, thanks very much for your support. Thanks to everybody on social media that is really supporting people and creating platforms for people to connect and build communities. It's fantastic. Let us know what you think about this interview. Let us know what you think about any of the interviews. We've 73 other interviews out there. Wow, I'm taken back by that. We're on all the platforms. We're on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, all the podcast service. So like, subscribe on YouTube, share it with family and friends, and mind your little self. Take care. Bye-bye. Okay, so we're live. Welcome back to the Magicminds podcast. I'm Matt Burke. On the show today, I'm joined by Dr. Malie Coyne. Malie, how are you doing?
Good. Yourself, Matt?
I'm fantastic, Malie. Good. Considering the situation. How are you doing?
I'm okay. Up and down, but trying to keep the spirit up.
Yeah, I think that's the consensus across the country, isn't it? People are peaks and troughs. You know, they're having good days, really low days, and that's okay too.
That's okay too. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Guys, I've asked Malie to come on the show today because Malie is a clinical psychologist. She's a lecturer in Galway. She's also the author of a book that's hopefully out this year, Love In, Love Out, a compassionate approach to parenting children with anxiety. She's also done extensive amount of work in broadcast and TV, radio, co-wrote a book with Brezzy, I just recently found out. And then you've been an expert in another couple of books as well. So, and then most importantly, you have a couple of little people that you own as well, children, which is the most important thing in the whole lot. How are they doing this? How are they doing this whole situation?
They're actually okay. You know, I think they miss their friends most of all. I think that's probably the hardest part. But apart from that, like, we're shielding them away from the news. Like, we're giving them little bits of news here and there about how Ireland are doing pretty well, seemingly, about, you know, flattening the curve and that, and why we're staying in, and explaining that to them. But apart from that, like, they seem happy enough. You know, they seem happy enough. They're content. We have our ups and our downs, but they don't seem traumatized. I think they miss their friends the most, but I think they're remarkably okay. And I think I'm hearing that a lot about a lot of children at the moment.
Yeah. I think probably the first couple of weeks that people were a little bit shocked and the kids were shocked. But I think they're coming around. I think parents have become very creative, innovative, haven't they, with things to keep them busy and
Yeah.
uh,
I mean, I got a hold of a bicycle and I hadn't cycled in many, many years. And I got a hold of a bicycle. And today we just did this massive cycle ride and we did it yesterday as well. And so we're cycling around the place together, which we never, ever, I never would have felt the need to do it except
mm,
in this situation, which is really nice, actually,
uh, yeah, it's fantastic. You really have to improvise, adapt, and overcome, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But lots of people are doing that. Do you know what I mean? Even, work wise, and we're all. But again, it's not without its problems, and I think we're only going to realize how hard it's been for some people afterwards. Do you know? I fully expect there to be, a lot more anxiety, maybe addictions getting worse for people with, anxiety, I suppose, and it's an unknown predator, as I call it. So there's ups and there's downs. There's good parts and there's less good parts to this situation.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Mally. I think when the smoke settles and when we start
Yeah.
to see the landscape, it is going to look slightly different. People are going to come out with residual difficulties. You
And how are
know,
you doing?
honestly, I'm brilliant. I've had my difficulties over the years, so I understand uncertainty. I've put together many tools in my box to mind my little self, and they've
Mm,
just come to fruition around this time. And I just
yeah.
feel really strong on myself, so I can support other people that haven't been in this kind of experience before. I haven't either, but I've had uncertainty, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's great, isn't it? That you can use those tools now.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Could you take us back a little? Can you give us a little bit about your background,
Yeah.
please?
Um, Well, I suppose just to say, my father is Dutch, my mother is Irish, and they met in Ireland many years ago. My dad was a diplomat, and then we moved around. My brother and sister were born in Africa, and I was born in France. And we moved around to loads of different countries because of my dad's job
Yeah.
until I was about 18. And then I wanted to move back to Ireland when I was 18. My parents were in Korea at the time. And by the age of 15, I had started studying psychology. Like in school, I was interested in psychology, probably because um, I think people become healthcare workers, or they go into that field because they might have difficulties when they're younger and they're trying to kind of they like I played the role of making sure everybody was okay in the family. I was the youngest, and I'm sure a lot of you probably recognize that yourself. But yeah, so it was kind of like Alice Miller writes a great book about the drama of being a child, and the reason that many people go into caregiving roles is because we lived with those roles growing up. And so by the time I was 18, I was like, well, I'm totally going to study psychology because it's the most natural thing for me to do is to care for other people. So that's
Wow.
why I started, and I was anxious as well as a kid, and I had my own difficulties. Like I had anxiety, and then I suffered with anorexia for a while, and that kind of ran in the family a little bit. And my parents kind of were, they since broken up, and now they're friends. But things weren't easy traveling around to different countries, and with not many support systems around us. I suppose I didn't really have many extended family that I would see very much. It was just the five of us going from country to country to country. So that's why I ended up doing psychology.
Wow. Would you resonate with the term by Irvin Yalom when he says only the truly affected can have effect?
Yeah, I love that actually. And he was one of the first people that I read when I started doing my clinical training. I loves Executioner, isn't it?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I loved the case studies he had. No, I've never heard that quote, but I do
I've read a
think
lot of
that,
his books.
yeah, have you?
Yeah. I love him.
Yeah, I do think that when you're sitting in a room with somebody and they're telling you their life story, that if you haven't gone through shit yourself, right? Sorry, I'm cursing, but if you
No,
haven't gone through, yeah, if you haven't gone through stuff yourself, it's very hard to like fully empathize with the person. Like I do find myself becoming tearful when people come in to see me and they tell me their story, and I really feel what they're feeling in that moment because maybe I've been through stuff myself and I know what that's like. Like it would be very hard for me to be a child psychologist without having my own kids, and it was back in the day because I was like, you know, I just knew stuff from a book and from having seen many parents, but I didn't actually know what it was like to be, you know, to have no sleep the night before, or to be dealing with the roller coaster that is being a parent. I just didn't really know what that truly was. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. It's okay having the theoretical knowledge, but you do need to blend that with the lived experience as
Yeah.
well, don't you?
Yeah.
Really, and
Absolutely.
I think that comes out in the therapy room as well, though. People can smell it, can't they?
I think so. And I think it's okay to do a little bit of self-disclosure as well. You know, not too much, but just kind of let them know that you understand where they're coming from and how hard it is for them. You just feel it. You just feel it. Like I feel wrecked after sessions sometimes because I feel like I've given so much in that room with them, you know, and I hope that they leave feeling understood. That's kind of the main thing. You know what I mean? I don't see myself as an expert on their lives. I'm just there to like witness their pain and help them through it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. So, how does your work split? You lecture, and then have you got a private practice as well? Is that way it is?
No, I actually work for the HSE, would you believe? As in, I'm saying, would you believe? Because I don't really kind of broadcast that very much because I
Okay.
suppose I don't represent the views of the HSE when I talk. Um, but no, I work 4 days a week for the HSE in a primary care center doing psychology with like children and their parents, 0 to 18.
Mm.
And then I do some lecturing on the side as well in NUIG in Galway. And then the media stuff, I kind of just do that on the side. So I've had to take months off to write the book. Um, and then the media stuff I just do on the day off that I have, or else on the weekend or at night. I do a lot of late nights. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Has to be done, doesn't it?
I know. But I suppose the reason I got into the media stuff was because I felt like a lot of the messages that I was conveying in the therapy room were similar. So I was like, well, I'd love to be able to feed that to people in a simple way. And so I think that you know, like in when you read scientific papers, as you know, it's very complicated. It's hard to kind of to make sense of what you're reading if you're not academically minded or whatever. And so the whole idea behind writing for me, even before I started writing my book, was how can I translate this evidence-based stuff into a way that people actually understand? Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because what's the point in it sitting in a library somewhere if you're not actually letting people know what that is? I don't see the point. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
and that's very much like what I think as well. You know, I've done my own reading and done lots of counseling and self development. So I try to give that back to people because when I was going through that process years ago, this was all alien to me. I didn't know that this language existed. I didn't know that people had the same feelings. And now I just want to be that gap between
Yeah,
me and the knowledge that's possibly available to people. I
yeah,
believe our stories are different, but the feelings are very similar.
yeah, yeah,
You
absolutely.
know,
I think you're right. I think if you kind of feel like shouting your learning from the rooftops, do you know what I mean? And going, do you know, like even I watched that interview you did with Brian Penny,
mm.
and I just was like so many light bulb moments, and I was like driving to Drogheda from Galway, and I was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Do you know what I
Uh,
mean? So and your mind keeps expanding. It's just amazing, isn't it?
it's the neuroplasticity, isn't
I
it?
know. Yeah, amazing. Absolutely.
Who are your mentors or teachers
that who
Yeah,
inspired you or you've learned from over the years that we could maybe
yeah.
share
I
with us?
um for me, I just want to, like, to answer that question, I want to talk about teachers for me that have been passionate. Like, I went to school in Los Angeles for a while, and I had this teacher. I mean, nobody would know her. Her name is Debbie. She's a mother of a friend of mine back many, many years ago. And she taught us all about kind of like Chinese history and Asian studies. And what I loved about her, and what I've loved about teachers generally for me, and what has inspired me as a teacher, is when people teach their craft in a really passionate way, where they like, when I go and I teach in NUI, in the college, I bring my toys with me, and I bring my angel cards, and I want people to leave the classroom going, wow, not wow about me, but more like wow about the subject. So that they're really inspired, and they really, like, even when I've had trainee psychologists with me and they spend 6 months with me, and I'm trying to help them to become psychologists. And I want them to be inspired enough to want to work with children in the future. So, like, I'm all about play therapy and working with kids using puppets and sand and really creative kind of methods. And
I love it.
yeah, I just think getting down on the floor. And so for me, teachers that are passionate are my inspiration, without even being able to name names. Of course I have names. Like, for
Yeah.
me, the most inspirational mentor, probably when I was in college and I was doing child development, I went to Trinity to do my undergrad in psychology, and Bowlby, who's the father of attachment theory, which is all about that relationship between the
Yeah, yeah.
child and the parent. For me, like, that is when things really, when you kind of start feeling something in your belly and you're learning something and you're like, oh my God. And it's like that from there on in, I have been like an absolute, it's been all about attachment theory for me from there on in, and the whole idea of infant mental health, which is the first 3 years of life, being the critical point of brain development for children. And my whole inspiration behind trying to help parents, to mind themselves so that they're able to look after their kids. And this concept of good enough parenting is where, like, Winnicott came up with that. And Winnicott was like followed Bowlby with his attachment theory. And it's all about not being perfect and just being good enough as a parent and learning to trust your gut instinct. And so that's kind of like, for me, that's been a common thread that has just run through my work, because I did psychology back in 94 and I finished in 98. So you're talking about many, many years ago, but I would still say that's the common thread throughout my work since.
There's a couple of things I wanted to pick out there. Did you say angel
Yeah.
cards from the get go? Wow, I got my
Yeah.
first set of angel cards today, and
Really?
yeah, it's crazy, Mally, because you had a spoke to me maybe 5 years ago. It was crazy atheist, and I was like, nah, I don't believe in. I'm just
I
mad about
know.
science. Now I'm like, I see feathers, I see purple everywhere. Oh, this is purple. That's
Yeah.
not by chance. I didn't choose this. I just realized one day. There's loads of other things, but it's funny that you mentioned angel cards today.
Yeah, there's a lovely set of angel cards. They're not here at the moment, but they're by Doreen Virtue, and they're the unicorn cards. And they are
I just read
just,
her today.
yeah, they're beautiful. They're very child friendly for kids. And
I get them.
sometimes I pick them for kids, or they pick them for themselves or for parents when they come in to see me. I do them with my kids as well. We've got a little shrine to our doggy who died 2 years ago in our bathroom. And we have our little angel cards that we pick at night sometimes. And it's a lovely form of spirituality. And I
I
love
love
bringing
it.
them in to my lectures, because they're so against the evidence base of
Yeah,
clinical
yeah, yeah,
psychology that I'm like, here's me and my angel cards. Hi.
yeah.
It's kind of, yeah. But who cares? Whatever helps,
I
right?
know. Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
You talk about attachment, so then you'd be familiar with the work of Gabor Mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I've read a couple of his books, Scattered Minds, and he does a lot around attachment as well. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. There's
Yeah,
one thing you said
absolutely.
there about parents minding themselves. I'm always saying this in the podcast. Mind you in service of your family, mind you in service of your community. And that's what you be saying to people, isn't it? When you're strong within yourself, you're a better parent, brother, sister, mother, father. Would you agree?
100%. Like for me, like, without going too much into my book really, like the whole title of it, which is Love In, Love Out, that is love in to yourself as a parent, love out to your children. So,
Yeah.
and it doesn't even have to be a parent, it can be anybody. Love into yourself, Matt, with your tools and doing things for yourself every day that make you healthy and help you to be healthy. Love out to the world with your podcast and your job and everything you do to help people. Like it makes total sense, but we don't all do that because many of us, like, I know that you said you'd read an article of mine about, are we stressing our children out? And the whole idea behind that was that and it came back to this stress documentary that I was part of a few years ago on RTE1. And
I read
we
about
have,
that.
yeah, we have three kind of emotional systems, and one of them is threat, which is very activated at the moment for many of us, and one of them is drive, and one of them is soothing. And a lot of us, a lot of parents and a lot of grown-ups who aren't parents, sometimes we may have not had very like adequate, we only kind of like, so these three circles get the templates kind of get formed when we're children. So when our soothing circle is quite small and we our parents, maybe there might have been issues with the attachment with our parent for whatever reason that was, without blaming anybody, that
Mm,
our soothing circle ends up quite small. And I end up having parents come into me who say, I don't even know what I can do to soothe myself. I don't even know what self-care is. I don't know what I like doing. I don't know what helps me. And that usually stems back to when they were younger, and maybe there was some issue with how they were soothed as babies or as children growing up, or maybe they experienced a trauma that they weren't helped through in the way that they should have been, without any blame to anybody. Um, and that's what determines how you soothe yourself. So you end up like the volunteer I worked with in that documentary found it really hard to soothe himself and ended up getting really stressed because he didn't know how to kind of meet his needs for soothing. All he could do was go on a rat race, work, 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 and not actually soothe himself with what he needed with his family and with taking things slower in his day. And that stemmed back to his childhood. And I think a lot of stuff stems back to our childhood.
oh, 1,000,000%. I can so connect to that. I would
Yeah.
be similar to that guy. I found it and still I get triggered. I find it difficult to self-soothe. I've gained lots of tools now to do it, but I would have always had that problem, but just never knew about it. Like it was
Yeah.
like somebody putting petrol on my feet and I'd be engulfed and I just
Yeah.
wouldn't know how to calm myself down.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I can really, really connect with that.
And that's like, that could be an overactive threat response, where like a lot of my clients would have, and myself actually, where there could be a small trigger that can suddenly send you into this like panic fight or flight mode, which is like, because your amygdala and your hippocampus in your brain are so closely attached together that even a
Mm,
reminder of a threat can bring you back to a very fearful state. And so therefore it's about kind of trying to recognize that and then learn, okay, right now, like this current situation is not actually that threatening. I'm only triggered back to something else, and I need to breathe and calm myself down right now in order to deal with what's really in front of me. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. Ting helped me a lot with that. The likes of Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah,
When I began to unidentify with my thoughts and feelings, and when
yeah.
I be in a conversation with somebody and I'm triggered, I was able to watch myself being triggered, going, "Look at you being triggered by this person. This is not
Wow.
real." And
Wow. That's amazing.
especially around women that I worked with, that would remind me of my mom, and because obviously difficulty growing up with me and my mom, loggerheads
Right.
because we're very close. So then I'd be triggered by people and I'd be able to
Mm.
watch it
Yeah.
But it took me a long, long time. That took 40 years.
Wow. That's amazing, though. That's amazing to kind of,
Mm,
and that's what mindfulness, I suppose, teaches you. It's about like, moving like, it's about attention training your attention to somewhere else. Do you know what I mean?
mm,
Where you're the middle of the wheel and everything in your experience is outside the wheel. Do you know what I mean? So you're the center and you can choose where to direct your attention. But like, I'm no expert at that because I get triggered very easily. I'm very like reactive. When things make me angry, I'm very into like fairness. When I perceive an injustice, I'm like, fucking, I'm just like, I get really like head up about it, but I'm very
uh,
passionate as well. So that's not a bad thing, but it
oh
means
no,
that, it means that people either like me or sometimes I don't know, maybe they don't like me. Do you know what I mean? Like I have to be, I'm
not
self-aware
important.
enough to know that, do?
It's yeah. I can go from 0 to 90 myself. I have
Yeah.
this injustice kind of barometer in me, and I find it going a little to the left from fairness and inequality. I lose it.
Yeah, me
Generally,
too.
What life lessons have been your greatest teacher to date? Have you had any that you'd like to share with us?
Um, I think like the first quote that I have in my book it's by Bessel van der Kolk, who writes a lot about trauma. And he basically said, I'm sorry, I'm looking down here, but the parent-child connection is the most powerful mental health intervention known to mankind. Okay.
Yeah.
So like, and I'm so the so in other words, the connection between the parent and the child, you could have every amazing psychologist in the world, you could have every amazing tool in the world, but actually the connection between the parent and the child is the most powerful one in terms of healing a child's mental health and in terms of helping them with that. And I think for me that's really important because it's kind of saying, if we don't look after ourselves as parents, or if we don't if we're not aware of the stuff that triggers us, then we're only going to be passing that on to our kids. So I just think there's an amazing concept called shark music, which is in this circle of security program that I've learned. It's a parenting program. And basically what they do is they show parents a video of somebody going down a path, and they're going down the path towards a beach, and they're listening to lovely, beautiful, relaxing music. And they ask parents, after watching that clip going down the path and then turning a corner and seeing the beach, how do you feel? And the parent is like, oh, I feel lovely, I feel like there's so much possibility and it's really relaxing and all of that. And then about a couple of minutes later they show the exact same clip of somebody walking down towards a beach, going back down a pathway, but they have the Jaws music playing in the background, like na 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 na. And basically they ask parents then, how do you feel going down that path? And the parent is like, I feel really scared, I feel really threatened, I don't know what's around the corner. And basically that's shark music. So in other words, we all, by the way, you don't have to be a parent to have shark music. Shark music is basically when you get triggered in your daily life by your children or by other people, which triggers something inside of you, which is a memory that you had in the past. So your shark music is meeting people maybe that remind you of your mother or of aspects of your mother that you found difficult. That's your shark music. My shark
Mm,
music is like somehow um when, like, say if my kids get hurt and they don't have a major hurt, they get hurt a little bit, and they say, mommy, I hurt my arm or something like that, and I'm just like, I kind of feel like I freeze. I don't show them the right level of like support around it. And I know that comes from the way I was parented by one of my parents. Do you know what I mean? So it's like
mm,
we just end up repeating the same stuff generation to generation to generation to generation, unless we become aware of how our body reacts to certain situations in our lives and what triggers us and what makes us go from 0 to 100 is our shark music. And I think that's a really important kind of concept to be aware of.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. And I just want to go back on something you said earlier, which is really, really important. And you said it a couple of times. Blame, no blame, no blame. And and when you talk about generational pain, which Gabor Mate talks about in his books,
Yeah.
It's passing it on. When you can say to people, yeah, it is blame, or it is generational pain, but we're not blaming you because we're not
No.
blaming the last person or the last person. And that stops it, doesn't it? That's what I want to do for my kids. I want to stop
Yeah.
the generational pain with me. And I
Yeah.
think that's how we help parents, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's kind of letting them know that the way our brains are constructed, the pathways in our brains, we can't help the way our brains like were kind of formed as children, if you know what I mean. So if if you were stressed as a child and your need for for comfort wasn't met consistently enough, well, your brain pathway is going to be that way unless you kind of get healed as an adult, which can totally happen. There is such a thing as kind of like a healing attachment, where even if your attachment to your parent wasn't ideal as a child, that we can restore good attachment as adults. That's possible. But I don't know, have you seen the film Resilience? Have you seen that film? Oh
No, I
my
haven't.
God, you have to see it. It's basically, and you'd love it because it's all about the adverse childhood experiences study that was done about 30 years ago that found that if you had experienced like a certain number of adverse childhood experiences, which include things like your parent, maybe there being drug addiction in your household, the parent being in prison, there being like emotional, sexual abuse, neglect, um, a kind of a range of 10 different kind of adverse childhood experiences, that the more of those you experience as a child, the more likely you are when you grow up to have certain issues, like not just psychological issues, but the more likely people are to die earlier, to have coronary heart disease, to smoke, there's loads of different outcomes. But there is a way of kind of stopping that from happening, which is what I just said there, which is if it's not your parent, it's a caregiver or somebody in your life being there to support you with your difficulty. So resilience is about being facing a threat, but having somebody there supportive to face that threat with you. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. And a lot of it as well, that's a fantastic point.
Yeah.
And I think Bruce Lipton, are you familiar with his work, The Biologies of
No.
Thought? And
No.
you can change your DNA profile going for your blueprint by finding things you love, attaching to things. It doesn't have to be a lovable partner. It can be a cat, a dog, a sport, a hobby,
Wow.
whatever. You can
Wow.
change your DNA profile going forward, which counterbalances some of that stuff that you
Oh,
just
wow.
spoke
That's
about.
amazing. That's amazing. I've written his name down. Thank you.
Yeah, I done what got me great piece, Malie, when I done holotropic breathwork. Are you familiar with that?
No, tell me more.
So I went and I done this. It's by Stan Groff. It's holotropic breathwork. You go into an altered state of consciousness, but you do through breathwork. He used to
Okay.
give people LSD years ago, and that got banned. But I went and done it. It was a workshop, 3 days, and it basically, the long story short, in one of the breathworks, I seen my mum when I was 6 or 7,
Mm,
going through a pain,
okay.
and I was able to bring it back to where I was as a child, and I expressed the pain and sadness, and
Wow.
it changed my relationship with mom. Like I
Really?
love her. Oh Jesus, yeah, it broke down a lot of barriers. I've nothing but love and kindness and empathy. Now I've done loads of work around it, and I've read lots of books at an intellectual level, but this happened at a spiritual and soul level. I
And can
expressed
you
a lot of.
and and can you just say a little bit more, because I think it's important for people to hear it. In what way did that experience help you to understand her better?
I felt it in my heart. I cried. I seen that she was hurt. So I obviously had this stuff at an unconscious level. I knew it at an intellectual, but my soul didn't express it. My heart
Yeah.
didn't cry the pain. I just ran away as a little boy and covered and hid. But then
Yeah.
when I seen in the holotropic breathwork, I seen her lying on the bed, hold her belly, crying, and I was like, aha,
Yeah.
that's what this is all about. I
Yeah.
didn't think she loved me. That's what it was.
Oh
And then
God. Yeah.
all the women around me in the holotropic breathwork, they look very similar to my ma.
Wow.
It was crazy. There was angel cards down there. The people that
I'm sure there was.
the woman that done my breathwork with me, she was a ringer for my mom. She never picked anyone like me to breed with, but she picked me that day.
Wow.
Crazy shit happened.
That's amazing.
It was amazing.
But I just think that's amazing because for me, I still go to counseling and I have an amazing counselor that I've had for years. And even just working through stuff, like what she does is she kind of, if I have a very kind of painful memory, she will bring me to the room that I was in when I was 9 years old, and exactly like what I was doing. I was playing Barbies at the time, and what I heard, and what the room looked like, and everything, and literally bring me back into that space of being a child. And like doing that and experimenting with ways now to talk to my parents to kind of in a non-blaming way. I mean, it's been incredible. I've been very lucky that my parents are still alive, that I can talk to them about stuff, like, and really, I totally understand things from their point of view now. I really do. I have nothing but love, exactly. And I don't blame one bit because I feel like, well, no wonder. No wonder. If I was in that situation, I'd be the same. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. I read
Yeah.
a book called Perfect Love, Imperfect Relationship by, I think, John Mello. But it talks
Wow.
about that, trauma. They had trauma and then they didn't know that they had it and then they give it to you. But I
Yeah.
knew all that, Malie, at an intellectual level. Knew it all up here, but couldn't stop being triggered and hurt by
Yeah.
stuff. But
Yeah.
when it dropped down from here to here, it was like, yeah, I get it now.
But that must have been amazing for you because I think children who feel a sense of not being loved when they're young, they carry that with them for so long. And that realization must have been amazing because, it's kind of like, oh, I am lovable. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And my parents are nothing but lovable. They've lovable all my life to me. They've good parents, but I just had this memory in my
I
mind,
know.
and other stuff happened. But sure, look, how do we look after parents now with this current situation, child anxiety?
Mm.
What can we do?
Well, I kind of always say that the first step with all of that, and we've spoken about it already, is for parents, like with the whole COVID crisis at the moment, is for parents before they talk to their kids or like that it's important for parents to know how they feel about the situation. Like if you're really stressed as a parent, it's probably not the right time to talk to your child about what's going on. But I do think that it's important to let our children know, like in an age appropriate way, what's going on with the situation, and kind of don't assume, like we're obviously watching the news. I only watch news once a day, by the way, because I'm just like, I
Mm,
don't want to watch it all day. I just can't take in that information. I don't even have time to watch it all day. I'm lucky in a way, but I think it's important to kind of, check in with your kids, every few days, and kind of, and ask them, how they're feeling and how things are going for them and what questions they might have, and really give them plenty of attention and cuddles, and expect that kids will kind of regress a bit in their behavior. Like some kids will want, to sleep in their parents' beds a bit more at the moment. They might be having temper tantrums where they had maybe not before. You're going to be seeing behaviors that maybe you hadn't seen for a while, and that's, kids don't have the words the way we do to express ourselves. And when we feel low as parents, we can, pick up the phone and ring somebody, but they don't know
mm,
exactly what they need in any given moment. So try to, if you can, be as patient as you can, but you have to give yourself the break, and also not expect perfection from yourself. Like on Saturday, I was really low in patience, But thankfully, on the most part, I am okay with my kids. And I did say to my kids, I'm sorry, mommy's just really like tired today and, not as able. So I had to kind of, I had to try to be gentle with myself, but I wasn't really happy with how I managed things. But I had to give myself a break. There's no point in me beating myself up for, talking to them in a way that I wasn't proud of, So I think we just have to kind of, you know, learn to live with the situation and realize that we're all in this together. Like, rarely has all of humanity been experiencing the same thing at the same time. So for me, that whole idea of compassion focused therapy, which is where my book is very much based on compassion, it's about that idea of common humanity. We're all going through this. So may I be kind to myself in this moment, which is self-kindness. And then the idea of mindfulness. We all have shitty moments, but thank God they're only moments, right? We
Yeah,
might,
yeah, yeah.
we'll, it's only a moment and you'll get through this moment. And if you feel like you're going to shout at your kids, or if you feel like you need a break, just try to pause and just take a couple of breaths, or just go to the toilet, or just take a moment. It's okay. And if you shout, but repair. I always say, if you shout and you feel like you've done something that you're not happy with, go back to your kids and apologize to them. It's okay to apologize. It doesn't make you less, it doesn't make them undermine you or make them less respect you. They will respect you more if you apologize. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think you hit on a load of great points there. One of them would be to probably to cap it off is not judging yourself. Like,
Yeah.
whether you make a mistake, whether you get it wrong, it's that internal judge. The shoulda, the tyrannies of should. I should be doing this. I should be doing that.
Yeah.
You can't
Fuck
deploy.
that. Fuck that.
Fuck that.
Fuck it.
You can't apply them same rules to a situation that you've never been in before. And
I know.
I'm getting people saying to me, I should be this. I'm eating more. I'm having the odd glass of wine. Blah blah blah. And I'm going, if that gets you through, unless it's toxic behavior, I would say do what you can to get yourself through this period.
Yeah.
Unless it's like having 10 bottles of wine or smoking joints, and I wouldn't advocate any of that. But if you're eating extra, if you're exercising a little bit more than you did, blah 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 blah, do you, boo, is what I say to people.
You do you, boo. I like that.
Yeah, it's just like judgment has never served humanity well,
But do you know why we self-judge? And it's something that I've kind of, the reason we self-judge, and I talk about it a lot in my book about, your own self, we have this inner critic, and that's part of our threat response. It helps to keep us safe, because if we didn't have that little voice inside our heads, it's there to keep us safe. So rather than tell that judge to fuck off, what we do is we try to befriend that inner critic and say, there you are. You're telling me you shouldn't have done this, and you should be a better parent, and you shouldn't be eating so much, and you should know how to manage this situation, and you should blah, blah, blah. And like what I say to my daughter when she says, I'm not a good drawer, mommy, and I don't do anything well, I'm like, Jess, can we just, like, that's that bully voice talking to you right now. And I said, we're just going to turn that bully voice down. That bully voice is there to keep you safe, and that's part of you as well. But we're just going to turn the volume down, and we're going to turn the volume up on the kindness voice. And we're going to try to hear the kind voice. And what's the kind voice telling you right now? The kind voice is saying, I did a bloody brilliant job drawing those things. I'm not too happy about the way that looks, but I did a really good job there. And I'm, and the eating too much or the not coping, it's like, I may be eating a little bit more than usual, but who the hell knew that we were going to be on lockdown in April 2020? Come on, So it's about befriending the inner critic, because the second we get defensive with parts of ourselves, the second we start splitting, and we have to welcome the different sides of us. That's what compassion is.
You must be familiar with, is it Katie Bird?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to one of her lectures. I'm hoping to interview her for the podcast, actually.
Cool.
She spoke about compassion focused therapy.
Exactly. That's where my inspiration came from my book.
I'd love to do one of the courses, but I think you
Yeah.
have to go to England to do it.
But I have, Matt, I have a list of resources on my Dr.Malie Coyne website at the moment. They're COVID-19 resources. And in there, you've got some free, video-based lectures with Chris Germer, who's like the head of Mindful Self-Compassion, and Kristen Neff. My husband keeps saying she sounds like crystal meth, but she's Kristen. I know. Kristen Neff, and they're like the four founders of compassion-based stuff in America, and they've got like free videos online that you can access and learn all about compassion-focused stuff.
Oh.
And they're all links underneath. They're free links, like free resources on that page.
Brilliant. I'll have a look at that then. So
do. Yeah.
Brilliant. We talked a little bit earlier about are we freaking our kids out? How do we stop that then? How do you wrote a fantastic article?
Yeah. It's about trying to heal ourselves, Matt. Do you know what I mean? It's like if as a parent you feel like you're shark music and you're being triggered a lot, your childhood wounds are being triggered a lot, then you may need more than just, a good friend to talk to, or, you may need to see a therapist. You may need to do some holotropic breath work. You may need to start reading around it. You may need to develop further awareness about why you're being triggered as you are. So it's about kind of healing yourself, because if you have even just the awareness is the key. And then you kind of can move on to trying to heal yourself. And a psychologist isn't for everybody, right? But, something is out there for everyone. Some people, whatever it is, try to, develop that awareness and try to do something for yourself that will help you to kind of heal yourself. Because the second you start healing, that's the second you can make choices about how you react to your kids. For me, going on this circle of security training a few years ago, it was an attachment-based training. And it was like, it was 4 days in Dublin that I did. And I started learning about how I was reacting to my youngest child in moments of stress. And I swear to God, doing that training, which was teaching me how to be a parenting coach in this particular thing, taught me how to take a breath when my daughter was saying things like she had this need to feel included in things all the time. And it made me see things from her point of view and be less kind of black and white and include her more, because obviously she had this kind of trigger of, when she was feeling left out or whatever. So it kind of created moments where if she kept getting out of bed, rather than me getting really angry and saying, go back to bed, I'd be like, okay, just come in here and we'll have a chat about it. And even now, when she says, Mommy, don't go, when I'm leaving her from her bed, and I'd go, you don't want me to go? And she'd go, no. And I'd be, okay, well, I'll stay as long as you need me to stay. As a parent, you just use reverse psychology in a way, and you kind of let your child know, I am here as long as you need me, and you can make the choice about when this contact ends. And I promise you, within days of doing that, your child will turn around and say, you can go. It's amazing. Honestly.
Brilliant.
You can
That's
go.
a little nugget.
Yeah, you can go, Mommy. So now it's like, I don't want you to go. And I'm like, you don't want me to go. And then she's like, okay, you can go. Do you know what I mean? It's amazing.
I know it's like, it's my ball, I don't want to play. But then you go, yeah, well, I don't really want to play. And they're like, but when you take some away from someone, like you leaving her, she's like,
yeah,
I want you back. But then as soon as you come back, it's amazing.
And you come back and you breathe into it and you go, look, whatever she needs right now, because I don't know what it's like to be 6 year old, but they have real fears about stuff. Do you know, when they hear a noise, they really think it's a monster. Like, I need
Mm.
to bring myself back to being that age. And I think if we were to just think back what it's like for them to really be in that age, then it really helps us to empathize more with them.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I For a long time it took me it took me a long time to stay in the now. I like this whole COVID-19. I stay here. I stay in my control zone. Is that a bit much to ask people to do right now?
Um, I did post something up the other day on Facebook that was like, life is easier when you take it one day at a time and remember that nothing is permanent, right? So that's
Mm.
the whole idea of mindfulness, right? That nothing is permanent. I I wouldn't be asking people to, like, we what we're trying to do here, Matt, is maybe kind of, you know, remind people or help people to kind of remember that this, even though this may feel like an eternity, it's like Groundhog Day every day as a parent. You're like, is it the weekend? What? It's Easter soon? What the hell is Easter? Like, is it Monday? Is it Friday? What day is it? What month is it? Like, what the hell is going on? Because the second they might go back to school, we have summertime, right? But like, I kind of think, if you can try to, like, anxiety is always caused by thinking about the past, or thinking about the future. So if we're to think about now, that's probably a good way to free ourselves, or to kind of, to live with anxiety that little bit more, because we all feel anxiety. But yeah, I think it's a good thing to say to people, or to remind people that this is a moment in time. And another thing I put up on my Facebook that I'm going to be talking about in my Facebook Live on Wednesday night, when I do that with A Lust for Life, is, and I love this quote, I don't know who said it, but in the rush to return to normal, use this time to consider which parts of normal are worth rushing back to. And I just think that's beautiful, because it's like,
Mhm.
we were rushing around, well, many of us were, and it's like, this may be the only moment in our entire lives where we can really take the moment, even though we might be having shit moments, loads of them, right? But there
Mm.
are also beautiful moments. And in those moments of reflection, trying to think of, what does my child actually need? And what do I actually need as a human being? And I know, I can kind of tell that, like, the slow life is actually suiting our children quite well. And we don't need all these activities, and we don't need to keep them busy all the time. And that actually taking moments to ourselves, like, yes, there's loads of things we miss, but that really, what we really need is family, and we can connect with people online, thank God. And, we need compassion towards ourselves, we need compassion towards others, but I don't know how much more we need.
Mm. It really shines a light on a minimal life, doesn't it? I was only
Yeah,
talking to my friend today. She's a clinical psychologist as well in the job. We're having the chats. I've never realized how little I need in life.
really.
It's net my, all the bells and whistles have been taken away.
I know.
We don't, and we're getting on just absolutely fine.
Yeah, I mean, we're cutting each other's hair. I don't know. I'm gonna have to ask my husband to color my hair in a couple of days. I don't know what the hell. But anyway, we're managing. We are managing, and I think it just shows, like, how resilient we actually are, and how resilient our children are as well.
Yeah, could we do a Facebook Live with the hair coloring business? I'd
No,
like to see
definitely
that.
not. No way.
How do we get down from our heads? No pun intended. How do we get down from our heads into our hearts? How do we bring people down out of there? I find that's the best place to be, but I try to
LS,
do it
yeah,
indirectly.
yeah. LSD.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
No. How do we do that? I think all the ideas that we've already spoken about, like, I
Mm,
think, when you said that holotropic breath work, I think the second you move away from language, okay, if you move away from language and you move into other aspects of your being, whether that be breathing, whether that be playing. Like as a child, play is hugely important, but it's really important as an adult as well. You know, those moments where you're engaged in something that you don't even feel time passing, whatever it is you're passionate about. Sometimes when I'm writing, I'm like so inspired. I'm not always inspired writing, but sometimes I am. Or you're having an amazing conversation, or you know, your humor can really help us as well. Music can really help us. Whatever, I think, goes further than language, because I think language can limit us. And I think if you bring yourself to a kind of a state of where language doesn't have to be the primary means, that you're being kind of like brought along by other things, that's when you can pause and really kind of come down to your heart. And even putting your hand on your heart and kind of releasing that oxytocin, um it can be really, and also like compassion for others. I think what we've seen, and you know, has been amazing in terms of people being caring towards each other during this crisis. And I think that really brings us down into our hearts when you help somebody, when you inspire somebody, when you really touch other people, or when you really connect with other human beings. That's what brings you down into your heart.
Absolutely. It's really, that's a fantastic point. It's really, it's taking the intellect out, isn't it? Take the
Yeah,
language away, take the words. It's the
yeah,
spiritual connection, isn't it, really?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
What has this COVID-19, how do you think that has impacted human psyche at the moment? And how do you think it's impacted going forward? Do you think it's going to leave a residual effect?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think I kind of really hope that we don't rush back to normal when normal happens, that whatever
Mm.
happens will be slow, and I believe it will be slow. Um, I think it'll really, I think right now we're not really maybe seeing the level of distress. I think the level of distress will become more apparent when things kind of start to return to normal, because I think people will even be anxious going back to normal. And then you've got people maybe with obsessive compulsive issues, like any person who didn't have OCD before this, because there's all this like constant news coming in about, you know, cleaning your shoes. I mean, are you still going to work at the moment?
Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
still going.
so am I. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Should I be like taking my work clothes off and putting them into a bag? And should I be doing this? And should I be doing that? And you know,
Uh,
the trolleys. And I'm walking around my building with black leather gloves. I look ridiculous because I'm touching the photocopier. I won't go into the kitchen. I just like, I don't know. It's. I think it's going to be really hard for some people, and I think for other people it's going to be enlightening. So I think there's going to be like a mix. I don't know, like we don't know for sure, like whether this kind of virus is going to go away and come back again. So I think our threat, you know, our threat responses will be heightened for quite a while, because we never knew this could happen. So I think
mm.
it'll take, I don't know, it's going to be a mix of good and bad. Like, what do you think yourself? I find it hard to know, really.
My thinking on it is that people have been. I read that book by Irvin Yalom. It's Staring at the Sun. I think people
Okay.
are faced now with death anxiety. Like they never had to deal with their mom, their dad dying. They
Yeah.
knew maybe one day, but now it's either Dale died or mom died. So they're facing this trauma which they've never faced before.
Yeah.
And when you've took away a lot of their crutches, whether it be work, drink,
Mm.
drugs, gambling, any exercise avoidance, and now they're staring down the barrel of a gun. So it's going to be really revealing when this is all over. They're going, look, they're going to have to probably face that again. They're going, like, what happened to me there? You
Mm.
know, people are after coming into a new chapter in their life, and they're going, would you agree with that? Or
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I really hope that, like for me personally, I really hope that, like when I was cycling with the kids tonight, and I just thought to myself, I never would have done this had this COVID thing not happened. Be cycling with my kids through the park, which is ridiculous, I know, but we did other stuff, but we just didn't do that. And like I'm so grateful that I've had that opportunity, you know. But at the same time, like I have a father living in Spain who's nearly 80. My mother is in Cork. My brother is in Poland. My sister is in Belgium. I have family all around Europe, and like it does frighten me when I do look at the international. When I watch the RT news, I like for me the Irish situation is relevant, but I'm kind of disheartened that they don't really cover the international news enough for my liking, because I
Mm,
really want to know what's happening in Italy and in Spain and in the other countries. Like for me, that's my where I'm interested, you know.
mm,
Obviously Ireland is interesting, but I just feel like I want to know more about the other countries. So um I yeah, it's gonna be a mixed bag, but I know that we're gonna have to really support people after all this is said and done. And
absolutely.
anything, we're all feeling a bit powerless at the moment, so anything we can do to help people is really important. Whatever small thing we can do to help is really important and
Mm.
empowering, you know?
Yeah, I do think though, Mally, that there is a lot of good gonna come from this. Like all the stuff I'm seeing on social media, all the stuff I see in my community, the connections in work,
Yeah.
the good, artists doing work for free, the
Yeah.
therapists doing work for free. There's a lot of good come out of this, and
Yeah.
you could. I know there will be people that have negative bias or cognitive or negative bias, isn't it, going forward,
Yeah.
and they be saying, "Oh, it was really bad," but it was really good as well. It's really going to show people's true colors.
Yeah. And I think, you know, as a psychologist, we will be there to help people through afterwards. Do you know, and I'm sure you as a health
Mm,
professional as well, like we will be aware and we will be there. Do you know what I mean? As much as we can
mm,
be. I feel like obviously there's waiting lists and all the usual stuff going on, but I think I'm really hoping that, you know, we'd be more open to like just people supporting each other generally. And I really hope, like, I feel for older people in Ireland at the moment who feel maybe, I'd hate to think of anybody lonely that
mm,
doesn't have somebody there to kind of help them through. And I really feel for older people and for people that have trauma histories and that are really struggling, you know, that are living maybe in direct provision centers or that can't socially
mm.
distance, and people that are in houses where there might be domestic violence going on and all that. I mean, I don't mean to be depressing or anything, but I think we don't know the half of it. So I kind of, let's see what happens. But you know, we can only deal with the reality which is now. So we have to just try to make the best of it if we can.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we can't talk too much about your book because that's coming out later on in the year.
Yeah,
Can you share any learnings that you've maybe acquired through the book, or that you'd like
yeah.
to share with us?
Don't write a book. No. Oh God, it was a difficult process. I can tell you that much. I always had a dream to write a book, but I don't think I realized how hard it would be. You know, because I was working and I have kids and all of that. But I'm really proud of what I've written, and I think I've written it from the heart. So, like a friend of mine had a read of it the other day, and she just said, "Malie," she said, you have like your book is an act of love. And that was such a compliment to me, because she was like, as I'm reading your book, I can, you know, Malie the psychologist comes out, but Malie the parent comes out, Malie the person comes out. And you know, Malie kind of like, you know, it's very much like what would I say? It's kind of like it's Malie the anxious child comes out. I almost was healing my anxious child by writing the book, because I really wanted parents to understand what it feels like to be an anxious child. And I had heard before about, oh no, don't talk to your child about anxiety because it'll make them more anxious. And when people talk about snowflake generations and all of this shit, which really pisses me off, because I'm like, you know, it's really hard to be anxious, you know, and I know what that felt like. And I know
Mm,
what can really help is to feel as a child, to feel validated. It's not that a parent kind of goes and tries to make things all better and reassure the child and give them everything they want, but it's about the parent kind of helping to anchor the child to safety. And that it's all about, like, my book is very much using the ideas of trauma-based kind of work, where, you know, first of all, it's all about this idea. I don't know if you've heard of the 3 R's, which are the reaching the learning brain, which is trauma-based work. That before you can actually reason with a child, you've got to regulate them, right? So if a child is feeling very anxious, if a person is very anxious, there's no point in saying, no, don't be worried about that, because that monster doesn't exist. If the child is like, oh, mommy, there's a monster, right? There's no point in saying, no, the monster doesn't exist, because the child cannot compute that. So this comes from the work of the trauma-based stuff, which looks at regulating a child. So going, so you feel like there's a monster right now. Oh, that must be really scary. We're just going to breathe through that for a second. That's scary. It's scary being 6 again. It must be scary thinking there's a monster in your room, and breathing through that with them. And that's regulation. It's using regulation strategies to breathe through with them, and then connecting with them, which is the relate part of it, which is, oh, that must be so hard. Mommy's here with you right now, and mommy loves you, and you know it's really hard moment right now, but I love you, and I know how difficult this is for you. And then you move to the reasoning part. Then you move to the frontal part, where you can say, I wonder what could make it better now for you for falling asleep. Will we maybe, I have an idea. I have this spray, and this spray helps to like spray the monsters out of your room. You know, so getting into that mode with them. Will we check under the bed and make sure there's no monsters in there? Will we put on the light in the hallway and make sure, and because that might help you? Will we leave the door open? Will we, you know, so it's basically trauma-based work is all about using you have to regulate somebody. You can't reason with them before they're regulated. You then relate with them, you connect with them on a human level, and then you get to the reasoning part, because you cannot reason with somebody who's traumatized. You just can't. So that's what my book, I have an acronym in my book which kind of works through that and incorporates the self-care for parents as an initial part to that. So it's kind of using the best kind of evidence-based tools, the best learnings. Like, I was only meant to write 70,000 words. I ended up writing 120,000 words. And the 70,000 are the best of the 120,000. And I went through about 11 versions of that book before it's now been printed. It's delayed the publication until the 23rd of July. But I really hope it comes out. And I really, really hope that I feed my love of children and my experience as a child and all my experience as a psychologist to parents out there in a really kind of human, understanding way, basically.
I'm after having light bulb moments going off for me there. The way you were saying, you can't calm a child down when other parts of the brain and the nervous system are heightened. Fear, anxiety, they set off like alarm, and then you're trying to frontal lobe, give somebody executive and planning and this.
Forget about it.
And I work in brain injury rehab, and I have tried to do that. I've tried to reason with my 6-year-old when she's been scared. Wow.
Just breathe through it with them. It's okay. You just kind of acknowledge where they're at. Try to, in that moment where you're breathing, try to imagine what it's like to be 6 and be afraid of the monster. And I know you want to get downstairs and eat your dinner, and so therefore reassurance is where you go. But if you kind of, you know, sit with them, their feeling for a little while and be with them in the moment, we call it being with. If you try to be with them and validate it for them, and then like calm them down enough for them to know you're there, then you can move into reasoning, and it'll work. It will work.
Fantastic. I can't wait. I bought 2 of them, one for me and one for my daughter's mom. So I'm dying to read it, because they're a little one. She's anxious as well. I'm obviously grew up with anxiety. Our mom
Yeah.
has anxiety, but
Okay.
we work well together. She's open to learn. Our mom is same with me, so we're gonna read it and we'll learn
Good.
loads from. I've already learned. I'll share this interview with her before I
Cool.
put it out.
Do.
I'm very mindful of the time, Malie.
Yeah.
What's the one thing you'd like people to take away after listening to this interview from you?
Just be yourself. Be yourself. Do you know what I mean? Like, learn what yourself is as a person. You know, we're only on this earth once, so you might as well kind of, you know, I don't mean be the best version of yourself, be the most good enough version of yourself. And if you screw up, it's okay. You know, tomorrow's another day, and there's no such thing really as screwing up. It's just about being kinder to yourself and really doing things that make you feel good about yourself, because this is your one opportunity to be here. And, you know, like, just like, there's nobody like you, so just be you, right?
My mantra in life, I should have asked this question earlier. My mantra in life is to mind your little self. I have
Yeah,
this
I
little
love
kid in me
that.
that I mind. How do you mind
Oh
your little self?
God, how do I
All of
mind
the
my
stuff
little
you
self?
just said.
Yeah, how do I mind my little self? I really like connecting with people. Like, I have really good friendships in my life. I have you know, I get on really well with my husband. We've loads of conversations. I love playing with my kids. I love good conversations like the one we've just had. You know, I love
Mm,
connecting with people. I love learning. That's how I mind myself. I connect with people. That's kind of how I
so
mind myself. Yeah, and
brilliant.
nature as well. I think nature in a way won't let you down. Like, going out into nature, going for walks, you know, kind of, I think that's very soothing. And animals, I love animals. I love animals, and music, and
Brilliant.
traveling. Yeah.
uh, I'm absolutely blown away. I'll really
Yeah.
consolidate what your friend says about you. You come across as a loving, compassionate, warm person. I see that first before I see your psychology qualification, which is always
Thank you.
brilliant. It's great that it's supported by your knowledge, but then just that human connection, it's so important, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I see that from you. So I really appreciate it. Really, really appreciate it. Honestly.
Thanks. Namaste. Thanks very much. I really
You
appreciate
too.
your time.
All right.
Take care.
Take
See you
care.
later.